The boy confronts it with a sword. The monster is unusually stubborn. The sword breaks into 2 pieces on the spot. The monster charges forward. The boy falls down from a high place. And this seemingly ordinary boy is named Percy. He can see the bizarre creatures from Greek mythology, but when he tells others about what he sees and hears, he is always mocked by others. As a result, Percy is isolated by his classmates. It's not until he's 12 years old that he makes his first friend, Grover. Over time, he also starts to think that what he sees is all an illusion, until one day, the school organizes an educational field trip. A thrilling adventure unfolds from there. The teacher leads everyone to visit the Greek Mythology Museum. Percy gazes at the statue of Perseus in a trance. His mother Sally told him that his name was taken from this demigod. She hopes Percy can be brave and face the upcoming storm courageously. The young Percy doesn't understand her words, nor does he know why he has to face the storm. He was getting lost in his thoughts, but he was teased by the curly-haired girl next to him. The leading math teacher came up and indiscriminately accused Percy of disrupting the order. The old professor interrupted the math teacher's reprimand when he saw the situation. He knew Percy was a special child. He specially took out a pen to comfort Percy. At lunchtime, Percy sat with Grover to have a meal. Unexpectedly, the curly-haired girl from earlier came to pick a quarrel again. Percy couldn't let her bully Grover. He was about to stand up and fight back, but before he could do anything, she was sucked into the fountain pool. At the same time, the pen in Percy's pocket was vibrating incessantly. Before he could figure out what was happening, the math teacher transformed into a winged monster. She approached Percy step by step. She asked the boy to hand over the thing. Percy couldn't understand what she was saying at all. Thanks to the pen, Percy's life was saved, but no one else saw the scene that just happened except him. Percy was called to the office after returning to school for a conversation. The reason was that he deliberately pushed a classmate into the water. Percy kept explaining that he didn't touch the curly-haired girl. Who would have thought? To avoid punishment, Grover pointed out that Percy had wanted revenge on the curly-haired girl. So, while Percy was betrayed by his friend, he was also expelled by the principal. Percy went home with his head down in despair. His stepfather, who lounged on the couch all day, mocked him for being expelled. Percy ignored him and went to apologize to his mother. To his surprise, she didn't blame him at all, and insisting on taking Percy to the seaside to relax. The two of them went to the seaside cottage overnight. On the way, Percy had a strange dream.
Run away, little hero, before you get hurt.
After hesitating, Percy told his mother about the recent strange occurrences. To his surprise, she revealed a shocking fact after listening. Percy is a demigod, born of a mortal mother and a god. This cottage is where Percy's mother met the god. The offspring of gods and humans are hunted by evil forces when they reach a certain age. Their intention is to eliminate the demigods before they awaken. That's why Percy was attacked by the teacher. The whole thing is like a bedtime story to soothe the child. Percy doesn't believe his mother's words. He thinks she's just comforting him with nonsense. Just then, Grover suddenly arrived. Percy was still angry at Grover for betraying him, but he was shocked to see that Grover had 2 goat legs. Regardless of how shocked Percy was, Grover told them they had to leave. The 3 of them got in a car and drove away from the seaside cottage. Along the way, Grover finally had time to explain to Percy. He is a satyr responsible for protecting the demigods. He has been silently protecting Percy from behind. Grover testified falsely in school during the day, because Percy had to stay away from there. Head to the safe demigod sanctuary. Just as the words fell, a loud noise came from behind. It turned out to be the Minotaur, chasing them from behind. Sally reminded the 2 to fasten their seatbelts. The car was knocked off the road by the Minotaur. The 3 of them struggled to crawl out of the car door. The barrier filled with white mist was not far away. Neither humans nor monsters could penetrate it. Sally asked Grover to promise to protect Percy well. Then, reluctantly, she said goodbye to her son, just as the Minotaur was about to catch up. Sally took Percy's jacket with his scent. She rushed over to attract the Minotaur's attention. Unexpectedly, she was caught by the Minotaur and shattered into pieces. Percy was instantly consumed by hatred. He drew the pen that transformed into a sword and charged forward. However, he was knocked aside by the Minotaur's horns. Percy took the opportunity to break off the injured horn with his sword. He forcefully stabbed the sharp horn into the Minotaur's body. The young demigod defeated his first monster in life. He fell to the ground and lost consciousness. When Percy regained consciousness, he was already at the demigod camp. He felt sad for his mother's death. He didn't want to hear Grover talk about being a demigod anymore. Percy planned to have a conversation with his father. He wanted to question why his father abandoned his mother. He found the camp counselor Dionysus, the god of wine. Ask who his father really is.
Son.
Dad?
Yes, Peter.
It's Percy.
Exactly.
Just as Percy was about to be deceived, the old professor who transformed into a centaur suddenly appeared. It turned out that he was the camp activities director. He was mainly responsible for training heroes. The professor told Percy that Dionysus is not his father. He then led Percy on a tour of the camp. Percy apologized for losing his pen sword. Upon hearing this, the professor asked him to touch his pocket. Surprisingly, the lost pen sword had returned. The professor told Percy, as long as he didn't voluntarily abandon the magical objects, he wouldn't lose it. 12 cabins appeared ahead of them. These cabins belonged to the 12 Olympian gods. All the demigod children claimed by the gods could stay there, since Percy hadn't been claimed by his father yet. The professor allowed him to temporarily stay in the cabin of the god of Traveler, apart from Hermes' 2 own children in the cabin. It was filled with unclaimed demigods. The professor introduced Percy to everyone, but no one responded. Percy thought the tragedy at school was about to happen again. Hermes' son Luke came over to greet Percy. He also said that everyone there was a demigod, so they understood each other's situations. They didn't intentionally ignore Percy. Meanwhile, Grover went to talk to the professor. He believed that Sally might not be dead, because Minotaur usually crush their enemies, but Sally disappeared into thin air like fragments. Grover suspected that Hades, the lord of the Underworld, was involved. Who knew that the professor and Dionysus had this suspicion early on? They just didn't tell Percy, because Hades has a powerful force. They couldn't act rashly. Strange dreams came again in the middle of the night. The mysterious person kept fueling Percy's dissatisfaction with his father. The next second, the boy woke up from the dream. Luke explained that this kind of situation is common. All demigods repeat a certain dream, and they also have varying degrees of ADHD and dyslexia. However, these issues are minor. As long as the demigod's name gets glory, they can gain respect and status. Just as he finished speaking, a girl with spiky hair deliberately knocked Percy down. She was Clarissa, a descendant of the war god Ars. Clarissa was annoyed when she heard that Percy killed Minotaur. She felt that this newcomer stole the limelight. Luke reassured Percy that as long as he gains glory, Clarissa wouldn't bother him anymore. For example, Luke is the camp's strongest swordsman. Even the descendant of the war god wouldn't provoke him. After hearing this, Percy had other plans. If he could also gain glory, maybe he could force his father to claim him. If he wants to gain glory, he needs exceptional skills. Percy must first find where his talents lie.
Should I try again?
No!
Clearly, archery is not Percy's talent. He tried several more in succession, but he didn't find a suitable expertise. During lunch, a bell suddenly rang. Luke explained that we had to burn offerings, because the gods like the smell. Doing this before praying can get their attention. In the evening, Percy burned the things his mom left behind. He told the other person that he made a new friend. He extinguished the flames and prepared to go back to his room, but Clarissa and others stopped him.
Tell me you made it all up about the Minotaur, and I'll let you go.
I didn't make anything.
Upon hearing this, Clarissa instructed her 2 subordinates to hold Percy down in the toilet. The next moment, the water in the toilet mysteriously disappeared. It seems that Percy's talent is related to water. Clarissa left the restroom in a huff. A girl who looked a lot like her leaned against the door. Annabeth witnessed the toilet explosion scene. She asked Percy if he was interested in participating in the Capture the Flag game. Capture the Flag is a team competition within the camp. Luke told Percy, Annabeth is the head counselor of the Athena cabin. She led her team to 3 straight wins.
We should cut her a break.
Whose side are you on anyway?
Oh, hers. Always. She's my little sister.
That said, but Luke and Annabeth are not related by blood. They met before coming to the camp. At that time, Luke was fleeing with a forbidden kid. Along the way, they saved Annabeth from being chased by monsters. Since then, they became each other's family. As for who the forbidden kid is, let's start with the pact between Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades. These 3 gods believed that their offspring were too powerful, so they swore not to have any more children. Zeus couldn't resist his loneliness for long. He had a daughter named Talia with a mortal. That's why Talia is known as the Forbidden Child. She was born cursed. Wherever she went, she would encounter monsters. Talia didn't make it to the camp alive. Only Luke and Annabeth were left to support each other.
She's been watching me since I got here. Why?
Luke explained that Annabeth was searching for the Chosen One, because the old professor had told her that there would be a demigod destined for a quest. Annabeth wanted to find this person, to ally with the One and prove her own strength. So whenever a new camper appeared in the camp, Annabeth would secretly observe them. At this moment, the old professor interrupted their conversation, because the Capture the Flag game was about to begin. The rules of the game are very simple. The first team to capture the enemy's flag, and return it across the river is the winner. During the process, no one is allowed to seriously harm or kill anyone. As the horn sounded, everyone immediately took action. Annabeth handed the team over to Luke to lead. And then she took Percy and took a shortcut. She suddenly put on an invisibility cap and disappeared, leaving Percy with a puzzled look on his face. On the other side, Luke led the blue team into battle. They were ready to charge into Clarissa's territory. The friends on the side became a little worried, but Luke said that Annabeth had everything under control. Percy would solve Clarissa, and things went just as Annabeth had predicted. Clarissa indeed abandoned the team and went after Percy for revenge. She didn't care about the game rules. She was determined to make Percy pay today. Clarissa and her two lackeys pursued Percy closely. Percy had no choice but to flee into the depths of the forest. Clarissa chased him all the way to the lakeside. Percy suddenly unleashed his incredible combat skills. He snapped Clarissa's weapon in half. The victory was now decided. Luke also arrived at the lakeside with the enemy's red flag. He declared their fourth consecutive victory.
Not bad, hero.
It turned out that Annabeth had been secretly following Percy. She suddenly rushed forward and pushed Percy into the water. Then something magical happened. Percy's wounds miraculously healed instantly when they touched the water. Soon, a trident appeared above his head.
You have been claimed by Poseidon, Earthshaker, Stormbringer.
It turned out that Percy was the son of the sea god Poseidon. The old professor told him, "You now bear a great responsibility, because a few months ago, the symbol of Zeus's authority, the Master Bolt, mysteriously went missing. Don't know why. He believed that Percy had stolen it. If Poseidon didn't return the Master Bolt within a week, both sides would go to war." But the old professor knew that Percy hadn't stolen anything. The Master Bolt was most likely in the hands of Hades, the god of the Underworld. He wanted Zeus and Poseidon to fight each other, and he would benefit from their conflict. Now that Poseidon had claimed Percy as his own, he had to retrieve the Master Bolt for his father. Percy was not happy. His mother sacrificed herself to ensure his safe entry into the camp. Percy wouldn't sacrifice himself for a father he had never met. Just as the two sides were arguing incessantly, Grover suddenly appeared and told Percy, "Your mom is still alive, and she was in the hands of Hades." Percy had to set out on his quest. He had to rescue his mother, but before Percy set off, he had to seek the approval of the Oracle. Unexpectedly, his stepfather was the spokesperson for the Oracle. The Oracle told Percy, "Go west and find the rebellious god. You will retrieve the stolen item and return it to its rightful owner. But someone you consider a friend will betray you." Percy kept the guidance of the Oracle in mind, so when choosing companions, he deliberately avoided Luke and his group. Instead, he chose to travel with Annabeth and Grover. The entrance to Hades' realm was beneath Los Angeles. The camp gave Percy $200 and a bag of ancient Greek coins. The former was the currency of the mortal world. The latter was the currency of the mythological world. Luke also gave Percy a pair of flying shoes, hoping they would come in handy when needed. Percy felt a bit guilty for not choosing Luke. But fortunately, Luke didn't mind. He just asked Percy to take care of Annabeth. Before the three of them set off, they went to a big tree. This tree was the embodiment of Talia, and it is also the guardian of the camp. Talia had been killed when protecting Luke and Annabeth in the past. Zeus saved his daughter at the last moment, turning Talia into a magical tree. It silently guarded the demigod camp, to avoid being noticed. The three of them didn't take a plane, traveled by car to Los Angeles instead. When the car stopped at a rest station, Annabeth planned to go to the convenience store to buy food. Percy wanted to go with her but was stopped. Monsters were more likely to sense powerful demigods, especially the children of the big three, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades. While Annabeth was shopping, she sensed someone observing her in secret. She hurried back to the bus. To her surprise, the goddess of revenge was sitting in the front. Annabeth quickly ran to the back seat and asked Percy to open the window for their escape. The three of them left the bus while the passengers were getting off. Grover led them to take the Satyr Trail, a path specifically used by satyrs for exploration. which could get rid of other people's tracking. Just as he finished speaking, Grover smelled the scent of hamburgers. However, ordinary people couldn't enter the Satyr Trail. How could someone be eating a hamburger here? They followed the scent and moved forward, and saw a small dwarf art shop. The entrance of the shop was filled with petrified monsters. Could it be that Medusa lived inside? Before the three of them could figure out what was happening, the goddess of revenge actually chased after them. She was about to capture Percy, but was stopped by the shopkeeper. The comer covered her eyes with a veil. And indeed, she was Medusa in mythology. Anyone who made eye contact with her would turn to stone on the spot. Medusa knew that Percy was the son of the sea god, so she invited him into the house for a cup of coffee. Percy, in order to avoid the goddess of revenge, followed Medusa into the house. Annabeth followed behind with resentment in her heart, because her mother was Athena, the one who cursed Medusa to become a Gorgon. Annabeth unconditionally supported her mother, believing that Medusa deserved her punishment. Percy felt that Annabeth's words were too harsh, so he followed to the kitchen and apologized to Medusa, explaining that Annabeth didn't have ill intentions.
She's going to betray you. Sooner or later, people like her...
Medusa asked Percy if saving his mother would hinder their current mission. Do you think Annabeth would let you save your mother? I can help solve this problem. Percy realized that something was wrong upon hearing this, and quickly took Annabeth with him to hide in the basement. Because the goddess of revenge was still guarding the door, they didn't dare to leave the cabin recklessly. Suddenly the entire underground lit up with flames, illuminating the surroundings. Unexpectedly, the place was filled with various petrified individuals. Then Medusa's voice echoed, and the three of them immediately dispersed and hid in the darkness. Medusa was still trying to beguile Percy, wanting him to seek revenge against the gods. Percy, upon hearing that, took out his pensword from his pocket. He closed his eyes and stood in front of Medusa. The three of them together chopped off Medusa's head. Percy grabbed the head, which was wearing the invisibility cap. He walked straight to the goddess of revenge, and in the instant she turned her head, he removed the invisibility cap and petrified the goddess of revenge. Then Percy sent Medusa's head back to Olympus, to prevent it from being used by those with intentions. They boarded the train and continued their quest. Suddenly, a strange glowing entity crashed through the train window. At that moment, the three of them were sitting by the window, chatting. Percy noticed that there were two centaurs outside the window. Only demigods could see them. Grover explained that centaurs usually traveled in groups, but thousands of years ago, the god of shepherds went missing. After nature lost his protection, it suffered from human destruction. As a result, the number of centaurs drastically decreased. The satyrs volunteered to be scouts, searching everywhere for the shepherd god's whereabouts, but for many years, they had no success. Just then, the conductor interrupted their conversation, saying there was a slight issue with their cabin. The sealed window was smashed by someone, and the compartment was in disarray from the wind. The conductor believed that the three of them did it on purpose. Furthermore, a woman in a nearby compartment claimed to be a witness. The conductor quickly called the police to handle the situation. The witness from earlier approached to strike up a conversation. She asked Percy and the others where their parents were. Grover, who was standing nearby, suddenly noticed that the woman's coat was stained with broken glass. The woman stopped pretending when she had been noticed. She was none other than Echidna, the mother of monsters. The creature locked in the nearby pet compartment was definitely not an ordinary cat or dog. The three of them hurriedly ran towards the depths of the train compartment. Annabeth quickly closed the iron door. Grover pulled out the thorn from Percy's wound. He couldn't recognize what kind of creature the thorn came from. At this moment, a deafening crash came from a distant carriage. The three of them quickly left the train during the brief stop. However, the monster from earlier didn't catch up to them. Annabeth speculated that the monster was likely in its infancy stage, still learning how to hunt. That's why it couldn't stray too far from Echidna. We'd better find a place to hide. And conveniently, there's an Athena temple in the center of St. Louis that can provide temporary shelter for the three of us. Before Percy could even catch his breath, the area where he was stabbed started to spread toxins. The two of them hurriedly splashed water on Percy's body. After all, when the son of Poseidon came into contact with water, his wounds would heal. It might even have an antidotal effect. But Grover quickly realized what the problem was. This decorative fountain doesn't work. It has to be natural flowing water, only then can it heal Percy's wounds. Before the words could even settle, Echidna appeared. The three of them didn't have time to think. They quickly took Percy and entered the temple. Unexpectedly, Annabeth suddenly heard Echidna's warning, and right after that, Echidna actually managed to break into the temple. You see, without Athena's permission, Echidna would never be able to enter the temple.
What did Echidna say to you?
She said my impertinence wounded my mother's pride.
It turns out they sent someone's head to Olympus, which anger the gods. That's why Athena allowed the mother of monsters into the temple. Annabeth didn't expect her mother to be so cold-hearted. She told Grover to take Percy and find running water first. She stayed behind to hold off the mother of monsters. Upon hearing this, Percy called out to Annabeth. He pretended to hand his pen sword to her for protection. He told Annabeth and Grover to go find Hades. Then he turned around and swung his weapon at the monster in front of him. Echidna waved her hand, cutting off Percy's retreat. The monster charged and slammed him into a pit. Percy's right hand gradually lost strength. His body plummeted towards the ground at high speed. Suddenly, a surge of water enveloped him. Percy fell into a mysterious underwater realm.
Your father sent me to tell you. It's all right. Just breathe.
Percy heard his father by his side. In an instant, he calmed down. The story of the first 4 episodes ends here. Can Percy defeat the mother of monsters? What new characters will appear ahead? Anyone who is interested in this story, don't forget to give a like, favorite, and follow me. Confirm the updates in time. These 3 children wander into the underworld. They are chased by the 3-headed dog of hell. The vicious dog grabs the lagging boy in its mouth. The other 2 scatter and run away. Thick fog obscures their vision. The curly-haired boy draws a pen sword and stands firm. The 3-headed dog falls to the ground. Drowsy, the swallowed boy crawls out of the dog's mouth. These 3 children have extraordinary identities. The curly-haired boy is Percy, the son of Poseidon and a human. He seeks to retrieve Zeus' lost master Bolt, and rescue his mother who was kidnapped by Hades. He is accompanied by Annabeth, the daughter of Athena, and Grover, the satyr. They embark on a perilous journey. The 3 were recently attacked by the mother of monsters. At a critical moment, Poseidon bestowed power upon Percy. He successfully returned to his companions. Percy tells the 2, they need to make a trip to Santa Monica first. My father wants to meet me there. Grover says going to Santa Monica is not a problem, but they can only proceed on foot, because the police believe that Percy and his companions caused the Amtrak train crash. If they continue to take trains or buses, they will definitely attract police attention, so they proceed on foot. Annabeth appears deeply concerned on the way. Percy asks her what's really going on. Annabeth decides to be honest. She saw the 3 fates at the archway, and she saw Atropos cut a thread. You see, the 3 fates are responsible for weaving the threads of all beings' lives. Cutting a thread means one of them will die. Percy comforts Annabeth not to dwell on it, because they hold their own destiny. Just then, a biker approaches and starts talking to them. Percy initially doesn't want to engage with a stranger, but it turns out the biker is actually Ars, the god of war. Ars criticizes Percy for being too slow, so he came to assist them. He says he'll be waiting at the restaurant up ahead. If they need help, they should go there to regroup. Regardless, having a helper is always good. Percy and his companions arrive at the restaurant. Ars immediately starts making demands. He wants Percy to go to the amusement park ahead and retrieve his shield. As a reward, before noon tomorrow, Ars will take the 3 of them to the underworld. Just as Percy is preparing to act, Ars demands to take Grover hostage. This time, only Percy and Annabeth can carry out the mission. Late at night, they arrive at the amusement park. Annabeth quickly realizes that this place is not ordinary. The mechanisms at the entrance are made of celestial bronze. It must be a theme park built by the gods, and most likely constructed by Hephaestus. The 2 proceed cautiously through the first obstacle. Fortunately, the contraption overhead is just for show, to give challengers a warning. Annabeth marvels at the design of the amusement park, but Percy is curious about Ars' shield, why it was left behind in this place. Upon hearing this, Annabeth tells Percy the gossip. Ars has always had a secret crush on Hephaestus' wife. They probably had secret date here, but Hephaestus caught them. Ars hurriedly left, leaving behind his shield. Truly, it's Greek mythology. The relationships between characters are more tangled than a ball of yarn. Just then, a light suddenly illuminates ahead. Pink letters spell out, terrifying love journey. Annabeth speculates that Ars must have been caught by Hephaestus here. They board a small boat, and enter the tunnel of love. Colored lights illuminate the walls, telling the love story of Hephaestus and his wife. Just then, the lights suddenly went out. The boat's speed suddenly increased, instantly switching to a rapid advancing mode. The two drifted along with the current into a grand hall. Percy spotted R's shield, but the boat continued to drift forward. He exchanged a glance with Annabeth. They both leaned to the side, and jumped out of the cabin. However, the turbulent current made it difficult to maintain balance. In a critical moment, Percy unleashed his powers as the son of Poseidon, successfully helping Annabeth climb onto the grand hall. R's shield was right in front of them, but it was tightly connected to a statue twice their height. To retrieve the shield, they had to find the hidden mechanism. Percy often listened to his mom telling Greek myths, so he was thoroughly familiar with the story behind the statue. The chair in the statue was a gift from Hephaestus to Hera, but once Hera sat in it, she couldn't get up. All the gods tried to lift her from the chair, but no one could succeed. Finally, the gods had to make a promise to Hephaestus. If he let Hera leave the chair, Hephaestus could marry Aphrodite. So, the chair was a bargaining chip. To take the shield, someone had to sit on the chair, although both of them were willing to sacrifice themselves. In the end, Percy sat on the chair.
I can't.
At the same time, the shield also fell to the ground. But Annabeth had no time to spare. She didn't want to give up on Percy. At this moment, an old man with a white beard appeared. This person must be the true form of Hephaestus, the god of fire. He tried to persuade Annabeth to give up on Percy, but he ended up being filled with inspirational words by the little girl. In the end, Hephaestus deactivated the mechanism, restoring Percy to his original state. On the other side, the satyr didn't idle either. He did his best to win R's favor. One moment, praising the other's combat style. Another moment, instigating R's to mock his sister, Athena. In no time at all, the satyr gained R's trust. He skillfully probed for information, wanting to know who helped Hades steal the Master Bolt. Just then, Percy and Annabeth returned with the shield.
Where's our ride?
R's explained that the car would take the three of them to the Lotus Casino in Las Vegas. Hermes, the god of travel, would be there. As long as Percy asked him nicely, they could enter Los Angeles, the entrance to the Underworld, through Hermes. Once the three of them got into the car, the satyr immediately spoke up.
I know who stole the Master Bolt.
That thief is the daughter of the war god, Clarissa. Upon hearing this, Percy and Annabeth quickly contacted Luke at the camp to have him inform the professor of the truth and apprehend Clarissa as soon as possible. Luke agreed at once. The truck quickly arrived in Las Vegas. The satyr learned that the driver was a smuggler. He wanted to illegally sell the animals in the truck. The satyr was a child of nature. He was capable of communicating with various animals. After consulting with the small animals, he decided to set them free. So, on the streets of Las Vegas, suddenly filled with camels and ostriches, the three of them were afraid of attracting attention from the police. They immediately entered the Lotus Casino behind them. Inside, it was bustling with activity, crowded with gamblers from all over the world. In order to find Hermes as quickly as possible, the three of them decided to split up. Since Percy didn't know what Hermes looked like, he had to follow Annabeth. During that time, they talked about Luke's relationship with Hermes. Annabeth mentioned that Luke's mother was a prophet. As prophets see terrifying future events, Luke's mother lived an unhappy life, and Luke believed that his mother obtained this ability was all thanks to his father. So, the relationship between father and son was very poor. Hermes had always wanted to mend things with Luke. Perhaps Annabeth and Percy could take advantage of this, persuade Hermes to help. It didn't take them much time to find Hermes next to a gambling table. At first, he seemed completely uninterested in helping, until Annabeth mentioned Luke. Hermes' attitude was changed, but he didn't want to get involved in anyone's affairs. If something unexpected happened to Annabeth in the Underworld, Luke would hate Hermes even more. Just as Percy was leaving in disappointment, Hermes reminded him to check the time. Percy realized with a shock that even though he had only entered the casino 20 minutes ago, several days had actually passed. Percy couldn't help but think about the story the satyr told when they first entered the Lotus Casino. In the Greek myth of the Odyssey, they traveled through a desert and encountered a group of people who lost their memories and identities after eating lotus flowers. Perhaps the Lotus Casino was derived from that. It would make people forget time and lose themselves. Just as Percy was in a hurry, Annabeth suddenly pulled out a key. Turns out she used the invisibility cap to steal Hermes' car keys. Now they just needed to act quickly. They could still complete the quest before the summer solstice, retrieve the Master Bolt and prevent Zeus and Hades from going to war. But before leaving, they had to find Grover. Suddenly, Percy saw an old satyr. They were about to go and inquire about Grover's whereabouts, yet the old satyr ran away. The two of them quickly chased after and questioned. Finally, they found Grover in the exhibit hall, but he had completely lost his memory. Percy and Annabeth took Grover away first. They found Hermes' car in the underground parking lot. Unexpectedly, the god of travel was driving a taxi. Annabeth also found an envelope in the car. It turned out Hermes had noticed her stealing the keys earlier. The The letter detailed the location of the back entrance to the underworld, as well as riddles to solve for entry. Hermes realized they wouldn't give up, so he decided to lend a hand. But the problem was the three companions. None of them knew how to drive. Percy clumsily drove out of the garage. Suddenly, the view in front of his eyes turned black. Indeed, this taxi of the god of travel was extraordinary. As soon as they left the garage, they arrived in Los Angeles, and Grover had successfully regained his memory. Before them was the famous Santa Monica beach. Poseidon was waiting for Percy there. Annabeth and Grover chose to stay on the shore, allowing the father and son to have a private conversation. Percy walked into the dark depths of the sea. He aimlessly swam deeper, but he didn't see his father. A messenger told Percy, "Tonight, the summer solstice has passed, and Zeus' deadline has arrived. Poseidon is gathering his forces to prepare for war." He asked the messenger to deliver a message. Missing the opportunity is not Percy's fault. He has already been brave enough to come this far, but Percy refuses to give up at this point, because a few days ago, he had dreamt of Hades talking to Clarissa. From their conversation, it seemed like this war was part of Hades' plan. The messenger was moved by Percy's determination. She gave him 4 pearls, to ensure the safety of Percy, his 2 companions, and his mother, safely leave the underworld. After leaving the sea, Percy walked into a furniture store. The store manager happened to be his brother, Castor. Castor continuously tried to persuade Percy to try out the beds, but Percy knew his tricks. Castor's beds had hidden mechanisms. Once you lay on them, you would be trapped. He used this method to kill many travelers. Castor walked up to a purple bed, but before he could convince Percy to lie on it, he fell headfirst onto the bed. Immediately after, Annabeth took off her invisibility cap and revealed herself, and Grover pushed open the door and entered the inn. The 3 of them asked Castor about the location of the entrance to the underworld, which was hidden behind the warehouse. As soon as Grover opened the door, he smelled a foul odor. Before they left, Percy gave pearls to Annabeth and Grover. Behind the door was a desolate world. The ferryman was ferrying souls to the river Styx. As long as they followed him, they would find the gate. However, the ferryman could tell that the 3 of them had not yet reached the end of their lives, and Percy pretended to be solemn. "We will eventually face death." As a result, after hearing that, the ferryman released 3-headed dog, and poor Grover was caught by the dog. Percy and Annabeth didn't have time to react, and ran forward in separate directions with their heads down. The thick fog obscured their vision, and Percy drew his pensword and prepared for battle. But suddenly, the 3-headed dog started snoring comfortably. It turned out that Annabeth had climbed onto the dog's necks, and was scratching them. Indeed, no dog can resist the caress of a pet keeper. Grover took the opportunity to crawl out of the dog's mouth, because Annabeth couldn't hold on for too long. Grover quickly used his flying shoes to bring Percy ashore. Then Annabeth also jumped towards the cliff and began to climb. Percy used a decompression ball to attract the attention of the 3-headed dog. Percy and the others successfully escaped from the trap, but before they could relax, Grover realized that his pearls were missing. It must have been swallowed by the 3-headed dog. Grover felt guilty about it. Percy gave his own pearl to Grover, and said he hoped Grover and his mother could leave first, and Percy would find a way to escape the underworld on his own. Just as he finished speaking, a strange bald person appeared ahead. Upon closer inspection, the entire forest was filled with these beings. Annabeth had read a similar description in a book. This phenomenon is called the Land of Asphodel. She lifted the bald person's clothes, and revealed the tree roots underneath. The bald person suddenly spoke. "The souls here are trapped by regrets." Just as the words fell, the 3-headed dog roared once again. Percy and Grover ran away immediately. Halfway through, they realized Annabeth hadn't caught up. She unexpectedly grew tree roots under her feet. This indicated that Annabeth had a deep regret in her heart. She said she had Pearl to protect herself. No need to worry, and she asked Percy and Grover complete the task first. Although Posey is very reluctant, currently there is no better choice. He and Grover continued to advance. They went into a desert. Unexpectedly, the flying shoes given by Luke suddenly lost control, took Grover's slide towards the deep pit. At the critical moment, Percy grabbed his friend. He inserted his pensword diagonally into the soil, and the flying shoes broke free from Grover's feet, and fell into the pit in an instant. Just then, a sound came from Percy's backpack. He opened the bag and took a look. Why is Zeus's master bolt inside it? Percy suddenly remembered. This bag was handed to him by Ars. It turns out that the god of war had been deceiving them all along. Anyway, they finally found the master bolt. They still needed to make a breakthrough in this underworld palace, because they need to rescue Percy's mother. The two finally walked into the solemn temple. The marble beneath their feet suddenly rose. The vision had become incredibly broad. The legendary Hades arrived in a hurry. He led the two of them forward. Percy saw his mother at a glance. She turned into a statue. Hades explained that the people who are crushed by Minotaur will undoubtedly die. So, in a moment of crisis, he turned Percy's mother into a statue. Percy demanded that Hades release his mother. Hades said it was no problem, but you have to give me the invisibility cap. Percy was instantly confused. What invisibility cap? Aren't you the one who wants the Master Bolt to start a war? Hades exclaimed in protest. He only wants his stolen invisibility cap back. That's all. Why does it have to involve starting a war? Percy guessed the reason behind this. If it's not Hades who wants to go to war with Zeus, the person he dreamt about that night is likely Kronos. After all, Zeus took away Kronos' throne. Hades insisted it was impossible. Kronos has already been chopped into millions of pieces, and thrown into Tartarus in the depths of the earth. Percy explained that he and Grover had almost been sucked into Tartarus by the flying shoes not long ago. It must have been Kronos trying to get hold of the Master Bolt. When Hades heard this, he knew that if it was true, war was coming. He would definitely need the power of the Master Bolt. So, Hades asked Percy to hand over the artifact. Percy took out the pearls upon hearing this. He said he would find the invisibility cap to exchange for his mother, but would never hand over the Master Bolt. After saying this, Percy and Grover left the Underworld together. The scene shifted, and the two woke up on the beach, where Annabeth had been waiting for them. She also brought the god of war, Ars. Percy demanded a one-on-one fight with Ars. If he managed to strike Ars first, then Ars would have to hand over Hades' invisibility cap. As soon as the words were spoken, the two of them started fighting with their weapons. Ars, being the god of war, quickly disarmed Percy. With one hand, he threw Percy to the ground. Ars kicked Percy away. Just then, a massive wave surged from the sea. Percy finally awakened at this crucial moment. The colossal wave crashed down on Ars. Percy took advantage of Ars not being fully recovered, and rushed over to slash his ankle. According to the agreement, if the god of war got injured, he should hand over Hades' invisibility cap. Although angry, Ars respected the terms of the battle. A flash of golden light appeared before them, and Ars vanished. Only Hades' invisibility cap remained on the ground. Just then, the voice of Percy's mother came from a cabin by the seaside. Curiously, Percy walked inside to check. It turned out that it was just one of Hades' followers who had been sent to retrieve the invisibility cap. Percy handed over the cap as promised, and asked the person to deliver a message. He hoped that Hades would also keep his promise, and release his mother. Although the professor's assigned task was already overdue, Percy planned to go to Olympus to find Zeus. He not only wanted to return the Master Bolt, but also warn Zeus. Ars and Kronos conspired together, intending to instigate a war in the name of Hades. However, Percy wanted Annabeth and Grover to return to Camp Half-Blood to warn the professor. Ars and Clarissa, the father-daughter duo, were working for Kronos. Annabeth took off her necklace, and gave it to Percy, hoping that they would see each other again. Soon after, Percy arrived at the Empire State Building. He directly showed the Master Bolt to the receptionist, indicating that he had something important to discuss with Zeus. As the employee elevator ascended, Percy finally reached the legendary realm of the gods. Luke had once told him that the biggest advantage of demigods compared to gods was that they didn't need to follow the rules. Percy believed that the gods should fear demigods because of this. Little did he know, Luke used spiders as an example, saying that no matter how afraid a human might be of a spider, their size was enough to crush the small insect. So the gods' fear of demigods was like humans' fear of spiders. The demigods were always in a more dangerous situation. We were like spiders that could be accidentally squashed by the gods. Therefore, Percy respectfully presented the Master Bolt with both hands, and explained his purpose to Zeus. Zeus remained calm upon hearing about Kronos, and he thanked Percy for coming to inform him. Therefore, he allowed this forbidden child to leave the realm of the gods alive. But regardless of who started this war, proud Zeus would not stop it now. Upon hearing this, Percy was extremely angry. Percy had long forgotten Luke's warning, as if it was miles away. He reminded Zeus not to start a war, as it would scatter the power of the entire family. Percy's words became more and more disrespectful, and Zeus was so angry that he was about to strike. In a critical moment, Poseidon appeared, and Zeus spared Percy for the sake of his brother. Zeus would ask Athena to convene a meeting, to discuss in detail whether to start a war. Before that, Poseidon had to get Percy away, even though the father and son had a lot to talk about. But Poseidon knew that the timing was not right, so he took out a pearl and sent Percy away. Percy instantly returned to Camp Half-Blood, where everyone lined up to welcome his arrival. To his surprise, Clarissa was also in the lineup. Why didn't the professor lock her up? Luke explained that there was no evidence, so he hadn't reported it to the professor yet. But Percy knew that it wasn't true. He remembered the 3 prophecies he sought before the quest. Go west, face the rebellious god. This sentence referred to Ars. You will retrieve the stolen item, and return it to its rightful owner. This sentence, needless to say, referred to the Master Bolt. The problem was the last sentence. The person you consider a friend will betray you. Percy questioned Luke, asking if he intentionally didn't tell the professor the truth, because he knew that it wasn't Clarissa who stole the Master Bolt but himself. So the demigod who teamed up with Ars was Luke. That's why he gave them the flying shoes to bring Percy and Annabeth to Tartarus. Upon hearing this, Luke drew his sword, and Percy immediately went into battle mode. Luke tried to calm him down, saying not to be nervous, and then he used the Stygian iron sword to cut through the camp half-blood's barrier. Actually, Luke teamed up with Ars to escape the control of the gods and his father. He was brainwashed by Kronos, and believed that by overthrowing Zeus' rule, he could achieve true freedom. Luke also wanted Percy to join him, but they had different opinions, and they started fighting at the slightest disagreement. Percy made a lot of progress through this journey, but he didn't want to harm Luke, so he couldn't fight at full strength. At a critical moment, Annabeth appeared. She had been wearing the invisibility cap, and overheard their conversation. Luke had always treated Annabeth like a sister, so he didn't want to fight her. He then went into the passage opened by the Stygian iron sword. The next day, Percy planned to leave Camp Half-Blood. He felt that his mother had returned, and Annabeth was also preparing to go home to find her father. As for Grover, he obtained his Seeker's license, and decided to embark on a journey to find the nature god Pan. The three of them stood in front of the tree, the embodiment of Zeus' daughter, and made a pact to meet there no matter what happens next year. Percy said goodbye to his friends, and went to the cabin by the seaside. He finally met his beloved mother as he wished.
It's time to wake up.
The mysterious person that Percy had repeatedly dreamed about appeared, saying, "We will meet in the real world sooner or later." Immediately after that, Percy woke up in his bedroom, and his mother came in to call him for breakfast and school. Perhaps Kronos' plot isn't over yet, but Percy is already prepared. The story of this season ends here, adapted from the novel of the same name by Rick Riordan. I feel that the plot content is a bit geared towards younger audiences. I initially thought it would have a grand worldview and narrative, but as I continued watching, it became more child-oriented. Although the main character overcame many challenges, the overall story lacks a climax, and the process of finding the Master Bolt is not thrilling. The portrayal of Percy's powers as a son of Poseidon is lacking, so his fight with Ars seems somewhat illogical. It's strange to see the mighty god of war being defeated by a demigod. If you like my channel, please subscribe me.